Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi sammyao samputoshe.
Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati samyo sambuddhase.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. 好的，师父上人，各位师兄，大家阿弥陀佛。Venerable Master, Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture. My name is Heng. Today is the 3rd of December here in the Gold Coast of Queensland. It's the 2nd of December. I think this should be Professor Verhoeven's birthday, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I'd better get on that. Glad that you're here. We're going to be looking into the Flower Garland Sutra, the entering the Dharma realm chapter, and I've been kind of teasing for quite a while, saying there's a moment when things turn around, when the action gets interesting, and we have reached that point. That is where we are. The presence of Manjushri Bodhisattva makes all the difference, as well as the presence of Shariputra, the greatly wise disciple of the Buddha. So that, here we go. Yep. That both of those figures, noted for their wisdom, appear at once. Can we turn that down a little bit, Sam? It's a little bit too hot. Is an important moment in the Avatamsaka Sutra, and it's a head-to-head match for wisdom among greatly wise bodhisattva. That's still a little bit too loud. And his Theravada counterpart, the great bhikshu, Shariputra, which is a fascinating aspect of the Avatamsaka Sutra. It presents the greatly wise disciple as distinctly inferior to his Mahayana Bodhisattva counterpart. So, alrighty, let's see here. We will move on with our. Okay. One more time. Here we go. Hold on. We'll turn that off. Okay. People are looking at a kangaroo paying his respects to Buddha. I think only in Australia would such a thing happen. So the Buddha is famous for giving his initial teaching at the Deer Wilds Park. And maybe Australia can be in the Aussie bush, the kangaroo bush, the kangaroo wilds bush. There we go. Back to work. Here we go. Ah, good. That's just enough. Just enough for volume. Here we go. Invoke spiritual presence here. Furthermore, we would like to acknowledge respectfully the Kombumerri people of the Gambi language region as traditional storytellers and custodians of the lands where our monastery is located here. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging, and to all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded but was taken from them. They didn't give it away, they lost it. 我们恭敬地承认有甘贝语族的空布玛丽人是我们寺院所在地的传统叙事和守护人。我们向过去、现在和未来的长老们致敬，并且从未放弃主权的第一民族的原住民致敬。Okay. We will speed through the Pomo people, a couple languages, the Ohlone people, a couple languages, and get to the bell song. Bell sound wild resounds throughout 100 million worlds. The Buddha's law is heard and spread all throughout the triple world. The wondrous sounds that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the Buddha's path. 众生传3000界内，佛法扬万亿国中，共训起法界和平，利益报贪我厚德。Okay. Welcome everybody again. Good to be with you on this Saturday. The Buddha jumped over the wall of the palace, spent 6 years trying to unlock the secrets of life and death, birth and rebirth, and death and rebirth. And he did, he succeeded, he made it. That event, 2,500 years ago, still being honored and celebrated and emulated and practiced all these hundreds of centuries later. And during the 49 years that he was teaching in India, he left behind various accounts of his accomplishment, what he did. In science, you'd call it a paper trail. He left behind a record. And among those records is the story that we're explaining on Saturday and Sundays, interestingly, or Sundays and Mondays, depending on where you are. This one's called the Avatamsaka, the flower garland, and the way our monastic tradition, the way the Buddhists themselves, different from the scholars, students of Buddhology, the Buddhists themselves, the students of the Buddha Dharma, in Chinese it would be Fo Fa as opposed to Fo Xue. The ones who study the Buddha Dharma have a saying that goes like this. They say that the Buddha, directly upon awakening, opened his wisdom eyes and looked out at the world, at the universe, and said, "Oh my goodness, this is Bukha Sui." And he described it. The Avatamsaka Sutra was the result. It's the Buddha looking at the world fresh, without filters, they say. They talk about it like milk right from the cow that hasn't been pasteurized or homogenized. So it's full of bits of straw and butterfat and really nutritious, but dense. That sutra didn't circulate at first because as I say, it's not filtered at all. It's not aimed at anybody, any audience in particular, beyond the bodhisattvas, and they say the devas, who could understand it without interpretation. maybe 500-600 years later, the sutra showed up in India and in China, and learned monks and nuns, particularly monks and some lay people, set about to explain it. They said, here's what we think it means. And so we have these two documents. We've got the sutra itself, and then we've got commentaries that the boldest of wise monks made commentary to. Among them is a famous, rightly so, renowned. Famous sounds like popularity. It's not popularity. He's renowned because he's revered, he's loved. A monk whose name was I kind of like it. Boom, boom, it's good. He's renowned because he's wise. And boy, is he knowledgeable. Name was Chengguan Fasha. He had a bunch of other names, like the emperor at one point said after, the Master Chengguan has many stories about him. Talk about, in Australia we say he's a legend. He was legendary for sure. 9 emperors of China took refuge with him, which tells you something about his lifespan. He lived to be over 100. And successively, 9 emperors said, we want you to be our Shifu. Would you accept us? So here's a monk who's got emperors for disciples. One of the emperors, after hearing him explain a piece of the sutra, said, I just feel so cool and clear and cool. I just feel like I'm taking a chill shower and very comfortable. Qing Liang. And so he bestowed upon Master Chengguan the name National Master Qing Liang. America doesn't have any national master. Billy Graham for a while was kind of a national master because he was the preacher to all the presidents. That might be the same thing, I don't know. But there's an official register of Guoshi, national masters in China. Master Chengguan was national master, clear and cool after that. He got a special robe, a purple robe that he could wear, that only he could wear. And when he spoke Dharma, oh my goodness, it was a big event. Now, the legends include this story that he took the Avatamsaka Sutra. He lived way out west at a place, Shanxi, in Five Peaks Mountain, Wupaishan. And he took the Avatamsaka Sutra and took his writing brush, and you know they had to grind ink, to take water, dip the brush in the water, squeeze the water out, dip the brush in the ink, and then do wet ink characters writing from top to bottom. That's how long the writing process took. But his commentary was, first of all, the sutra is huge, but the commentary had to say more about each word in the sutra just to explain it, right? So he finished it, and they say he didn't sleep, and he would write for hours and hours and hours. And when he was done, he handed it to his disciples, and they went, Shifu, sorry, it's too erudite. We don't really understand it. Could you possibly comment on your commentary? So he did. He started over, and he wrote a sub-commentary. So we have the Huayan. Huayan is Avatamsaka, flower garland. We have the Huayan Su and the Huayan Chao, the commentary and the sub-commentary. Later, disciples took a piece of one and patched the piece of the second after it, and then a piece of the corresponding part after the commentary. So we have editions later that put them all together. Originally, they were 3 separate volumes. So now we have a combined Avatamsaka Sutra, which is a great boon for those of us who want to understand. Now, Master Xuanhua is famously said, I don't lecture from commentaries. I respect commentaries. I don't depend on commentaries. 我不依赖注解. So we know that Master Hua explained the Avatamsaka Sutra just like Master Chengguan did. It took him 9 years to do it, and he was lecturing every single night for 90 minutes. So we have a complete 20th century commentary to the Avatamsaka Sutra. And my goodness, is it lively, a lively text. Before we published it, we had to go through and edit out all the places where Master Hua would be scolding a disciple or commenting on American politics, or, it was a really lively session. When you attended Master Hua's lectures, he would tell jokes, and he would tell stories, and he would refer to his disciples' shortcomings and correct them. And great fun. So very much a lively, living document of the times. It's a sociological document too. A sutra text just commented on in a converted mattress factory in the Mission District of San Francisco, 15th Street. So the point is, why I'm telling you this story is, today because we have reached this turning point in our sutra, Manjushri Bodhisattva has shown up, and Shariputra is right behind him. It's a turning point. The preliminaries are over. I consulted the commentary, the double commentary by Master Chengguan, to make sure that I was on the right track to present this material correctly. And I discovered something that I had forgotten. I rediscovered something that I had forgotten. I was drawn to the Avatamsaka Sutra first when I first showed up. This little personal note before we get to the sutra. I arrived at Gold Mountain Monastery in 1974, and my former college roommate, known then as David Bernstein, and David leapfrogged my interest in Buddhism. I had gone to Japan to study Japanese Zen as a layman. I had no interest in becoming a Japanese monk. There were Japanese monks. And when I came back to college to finish my senior year, found out that David Bernstein had finished his degree early. He did 4 years work in 3 years, gone to San Francisco and become Bhikshu Heng under Master Hsuan Hua. So I showed up in 74, and I took refuge in 73 and moved into the monastery in 74, and asked Bhikshu Heng what's a good practice to start, since he was way ahead, he was ahead of me by a year. And he said, why don't you bow to a sutra? I said, what do you mean bow to a sutra? He said, I'll show you. He said, here. And he had a copy of the Avatamsaka Sutra. He opened it up, and it was one of those butterfly binding Chinese old traditional bindings. And he said, okay, thus I have heard. Thus, bow, I, Ru, Shi, Wo, one, heard. And he said, do that. I said, are you kidding? I'm a master's degree candidate at University of California, Berkeley. I read 5 books at once. I just keep them open. They're stacked up, like. He said, yeah, and you don't know anything you've learned. He said, precisely, bowing to a sutra, because it's slow, because it's dumb, you need it. You'll remember what you bowed to. So I was like, yeah, skeptical. And so I started bowing, and about half an hour into it, I realized that I could recall every character on the page because I had bowed and I had contemplated the character in my dantian as I was educated. So it was like, hey, this is really interesting. Slow reading is good reading. Speed reading may not provide lasting results, even though you can flip through books quickly. So from that time on, I knew I had a connection to the Avatamsaka Sutra. And hearing Master Hua explain it every single night in a friendly, compelling, lively, I don't want to say entertaining because that sounds like it's cheap, but Shifu's lectures were endlessly entertaining because there was a presence in the air that if you thought that the gods and the dragons and the Eightfold Pantheon were there, you could explain it that way. That's I didn't see them, but you had a feeling. As soon as we went Namo Da Fang Guang Fo Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pusa, there was a sense of the air was thick with light, and after the lecture you felt cleaner, you felt qing liang, you felt clear and cool. And it often involved being, coming face to face with your habits and faults, because Master Hua brought light into the room, and that light illuminated all the places where I was feeling defensive or anxious or irritated for being laughed at in a wholesome way. So all kinds of, like all the places where your window was still smudged, your window on the world would be illuminated by Master Hua's light. So all these things are going on, and it's a sutra lecture. Here's an old monk explaining an old book, not from the commentary, but from the Buddha's own words. Here's my point. Currently, in the Buddhist world, in the Mahayana Buddhist world, there is an opinion that the Avatamsaka Sutra is too philosophical, too difficult to explain. People, by and large, don't. And yet, our experience at Gold Mountain Monastery with Master Hua was the sutra was an ocean, and we were empowered to swim in it. There was no doubt that the Avatamsaka Sutra was a big, wide gate for us to enter into, to explore the Dharma realm and living beings and our minds. It was not intimidating. It was not ultra-philosophical and therefore incomprehensible. It wasn't. It was useful, even necessary, to understanding our lives and the world around us. The sutra helped when you understood these principles. So how funny, what a contrast to the current interpretation of the Avatamsaka Sutra as being chock full of Sanskrit, full of lofty principles, and basically philosophy. We found that was not the case. The Avatamsaka Sutra talked about bodhisattvas, these admirable human beings who looked at the suffering of the world and said, if I don't help them, who will? It's because living beings are so confused and so upside down and so attached and so deluded that if I can understand a single principle of Dharma, I'm going to offer it, see if it can help. That's the level of heart that the Bodhisattva and the Avatamsakas present. So, what a different experience. Okay, now, back to today. Today, because we're at this crossroads in our chapter, the preliminary narrative is over. We're about to stitch over. We're about to merge, using a freeway metaphor. We're going to merge onto the M1 here. We're going to merge onto the main freeway of the story, the narrative, the story. Sudana, the pilgrim, is about to show up. We've got his first teachers are here. Manjushri, Bodhisattva. We've met the Buddha, we've met all the Bodhisattvas, and the last couple sections of the sutra, the last couple weeks, we had Bhikshuni Hangzhe, we had Marty Verhoeven, who came and spoke while I was in China. And the last section said, these Bodhisattvas go out and they teach in all these different places. They teach in the homes of Garudas and Gandharvas and Mahoragas, and they teach among the Devas, they teach in the halls of the dragons, and when they can, they teach among the kings, and they teach among the spirits, and it listed 20 kinds of spirits that appeared. So it's very interesting that we've had this long list of different beings in the spiritual realm and the human realm as well. And what we're about to see is a young man set off to wake up, set off to cultivate the way, Sudana. What does he do? He meets 54, I'll explain that, 54, not 52, not 53, 54 different teachers who are the bodhisattvas that we've just encountered. So I learned that by reading the commentary. I'd never put that together because I hadn't recalled just the end of the prelude, the end of the preparation. These bodhisattvas they're given their orders to go out and teach in all these different places by the Buddha. Sudana's pilgrimage is the walkthrough of the homes, of the places, of the schools, of the stores, of the offices, the forests of all these teachers, where they show up in all their different places. Okay, so far so good, right? You with me? Now, I confess we're using ChatGPT to do a quick translation, a rough translation of the text that I hadn't really understood, because Master Chengguan writes in a very, very terse, ancient, medieval, classical Chinese. It's a lot like reading Beowulf or Chaucer. Chaucer's a pretty good analogy. Chaucer, you can read it, but you have to work on it. It's English, but it's, beyond thee and thou. It's not Shakespearean. Shakespeare's easy, Chaucer's dense. Master Chengguan's Chinese is the same way. It's, of course, from the 7th century and the 8th century. So, 1,700 years, 1,300 years ago. So I was reading English, and I understood something. I understood why people say all philosophy, not able to understand it. Don't read it, don't explain it. Because Master Chengguan, in his commentary, has the ability to shift gears and take you into a realm of wisdom that is hard to follow. That's not the whole of it. He then shifts back into a list, very helpful list. Oh, you're going to meet these characters now in this part of the sutra. Super practical, very complete, very analytical. And then he'll shift gears again, and you get things like this. So today I discovered, the short of what I'm trying to share is, today I discovered why I reminded myself something that I had forgotten. Why the Avatamsaka Sutra is considered to be too complicated, too philosophical, too lofty. Take a gander. For the Chinese readers, I'll give you the Chinese first, then we're going to look at the English, and tell me how you're doing with it after about 4 sentences. Ready? 复圆满教海，设法无益，渐顿概落，本末交因，人法永会，贵在宏通，故非顿无益显圆，非浅无益显捷径，非本无益吹末，非末无益显本，非人无益正法。非法无益成人, right? I mean, it's beautifully done, but what's he saying? In the all-encompassing teaching ocean that gathers all Dharma without exception, the gradual and sudden approaches are all included. The beginning and the end intersect, and the fusion of person and Dharma converges. The essence lies in the widespread dissemination. Therefore, without the sudden approach, the complete circle cannot be shown. Without the gradual, there's no progression. Without the beginning, there can be no guide to the end. Without the end, the beginning cannot be highlighted. Without the person, the Dharma cannot be realized. Without the Dharma, the person cannot be perfected. So you go, yeah, that's elegant. It's the previous sections clarified the sudden approaches and the gradual, a multitude of gates, yet a common commitment among all people. All right, so just you get the idea. So this is another gear that that our teacher from the Tang Dynasty, the writer of the commentary, can shift into. That for this reason, if somebody said, okay, you have to explain that to us before you go any further. That's your job as the commentator today. You're explaining the sutra, you explain that. If I had to do that, I would say, I confess, can't get to it. That's wisdom deeper than mine. Master Hua steered us around that lofty mountain. He said, if you understand one part, explain one part. If you understand 10 parts, explain 10 parts. And then Shifu would launch into a story from Manchuria. He would point out somebody was sleeping in the audience, and he would keep it lively and keep it fresh, and no notes, no commentary on his table, just the Buddha's voice. And then he would come back into the sutra and let the Buddha's voice be heard. So I just wanted to start there because I had this experience about 2 hours ago as I was preparing that, oh, right, that's why the Avatamsaka Sutra scares people away. Monks won't, if they know that's what they have to explain, they have to go to the Tang Dynasty commentary, which the Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese tradition does. You have to go to the commentary. They don't explain the Buddha's voice because somehow the sutra got the reputation of being too lofty. Thank goodness Master Hua actually forbade us, made it taboo to bring any piece of paper up on the altar, up on the lecture platform. Said, lecture from your own cultivation. If you don't meditate during the day, if you don't hold the precepts, if you don't, or attempt to hold the precepts, if you don't recite the Buddha's name when it's time to speak, your lecture is going to be flavorless and dull. People won't listen because they won't hear anything. But if you ordinarily cultivate at somehow, whichever thing you do during the day, and you respectfully put your palms together and open the sutra, people's needs to hear the Dharma filtered through whatever clarity of lens you have polished will be fresh and tasty and Dharma nutritious for people who come to listen, he said. Those are his instructions. So today I had a clue. My conclusion, before we jump into the text, my conclusion to all of this was, today I recalled why people are afraid to explain the Avatamsaka. It's because of this habit of going to the commentary first before you touch the sutra, and somehow this feeling that our wisdom is not enough to interpret the Buddha directly from the sutra. So from that point, let's jump into the sutra, and you tell me whether you feel like this is incomprehensible Buddha's wisdom. Ready? 文殊师利于如是等功德庄严诸菩萨众，出自住处，来诣佛所，又绕世尊，经无量匝，以诸工具，种种供养，供养必已，辞退难行，望欲人间。Manjushri and all those great bodhisattva assemblies, also adorned with excellent qualities, came from their own dwellings to visit the Buddha. They circumambulated the Buddha to the right a countless number of times and made offerings of many decorations. After making these offerings, they said farewell and went south toward the world of humans. Okay, this is straight ahead narration. These are directions on the director's script of the Avatamsaka movie that somebody will make at some point. It probably will be animation, probably give it to Miyazaki Hayao to do. He's the guy. He could do a wonderful Avatamsaka. And here's Manjushri. What he's doing? Bowing to the Buddha. Look, this is the Bodhisattva who is called Dazhi, Wanchushri, greatly wise Manjushri. And he is said to be, here's the language they use, the mother of Buddhas. He wields prajna paramita, the perfection of wisdom. Prajna paramita gives birth to all bodhisattva practices. So Manjushri and Master Chungguan, one of the things he talks about is how Manjushri is actually only half of the Avatamsaka team. Actually a third, you could say, a third of the Avatamsaka team. Here he is. I can't move my computer. Sorry, I'll disrupt all the cables. Don't want to do that. My microphone will go scrunchy wampus. So anyway, maybe a little bit. Samantabhadra, Manjushri, there he is, and Vairochana, the teaching host. All right. So there they are. Together, they're called, oops, I did it. I extinguished my screen. It's back. There we go. They're called the Huayan Sansheng, the three sages of the Avatamsaka. And Master Chungguan spends a whole lot of time explaining what Manjushri represents and what Samantabhadra represents. There is a level of intellectual curiosity that maybe is satisfied by that. When I started my pilgrimage, bowing to the Avatamsaka Sutra, Master Hua's secretary, an elder gentleman from Manchuria named Mr. Zhou Guoli, Zhou Jushi, Zhou Li Ren. He gave me a book. And, screen is not back yet, says Jerry. Really? Screen is not back yet. You want me to share? Oh, no, I'm not sharing. I'm not. I'm showing you my face. There we go. So he gave me a book to consult, and it was a Chinese scholarly compendium of writers on the Avatamsaka. And I remember I was so thrilled because here was my chance, and it was all, of course, in traditional characters in Chinese. And I was ready to dive into it. I thought, finally, I can get some, beyond Shifu, I can get another view, a traditional view. We know that Shifu's way of explaining the Avatamsaka is so fresh. What is the traditional view? And I opened it up, and I did not get past page 1. Honestly, I didn't get to page 2 before I fell asleep. My head just went right down. It was because it's all based on Huayan Zong. It was studies of the Huayan school, which includes Master Du Shun, Master Zhiyan, Master Du Shun, Master Fa Zhang, Master Chungguan, and Master Zong Mi, the five-fold patriarchs of the Avatamsaka school. And from Zhiyan and Du Shun are semi-mythological. They didn't leave behind much. We know they existed, and there's some teachings. But when it gets to number 3, Fa Zhang Fa Shi and Chungguan Fa Shi, that's where the philosophy comes in. There it was in the book. Couldn't read it. I fell asleep, and I tried over and over. I was determined to absorb the information in that book. It beat me. I couldn't do it. It's the equivalent, if anybody has taken Western philosophy courses, Western analytical philosophy. Anybody studied Hegel? Anybody studied Nietzsche? Anybody studied Wittgenstein, right? Ludwig Wittgenstein, or even Whitehead process. There's a certain state of mind. My colleague, Doug Powers, got 2 master's degrees in Western analytical philosophy. He reads Immanuel Kant in the original, Immanuel Kant, Kantian philosophy. The Critique of Pure Reason he reads, and he's just... So, not there. That's not my point of view. When I read the Avatamsaka Sutra, I get so inspired. When I pick up the commentaries to the Avatamsaka, I fall asleep. I confess. So, that's my personal animus. However, I have made a career as a monk expounding the Avatamsaka Sutra, and I realize that if it was not for Master Hua giving us permission to explain from our own experience, in fact, insisting that that is the way he teaches, he lectures, and if I go up with notes and I prepared, that's not the way to do it. If it weren't for that, I probably would not explain, try to even touch the Avatamsaka. It's too intellectually dry. It hasn't progressed since the Tang Dynasty and the way of approaching it, and I think that's I regret. That's a loss to the Buddhist world, that people don't see what I call a practice-based interpretation of the Avatamsaka. That the key word for understanding the Avatamsaka is xin, cultivate, practice. The practices of the Avatamsaka. Tomorrow night at this time, tomorrow afternoon at this time, I'll be explaining one of those practices, transference, Huixiang. An entire chapter on a single practice, one of the longest chapters in the sutra, and I'm explaining it now for years, tomorrow night to be continued, because it's so compelling, it's so moving to see people, humans, and non-humans who give up their lives to benefit others through the practice of the Buddha's wisdom and compassion. It makes my heart warm. So, okay, Manjushri and those great Bodhisattva assemblies, what do? Those assemblies, who were also incredibly blessed, adorned with excellent qualities, means when you saw them, you were impressed. They looked on the up and up. They looked good. They looked light-filled. Those assemblies, who were they? Remember last week? They were, to review, poor translator, he's got to catch it on the fly. Go, Cliff. Okay, spirits of goodness, many-bodied spirits, foot-traveling spirits, earth-ruling, water-ruling, fire-ruling, wind-ruling spirits were with Manjushri. Direction-ruling spirits, north, south, east, west. Night-ruling spirits, we meet 10 of them later on in the pilgrimage. Day-ruling spirits, space-ruling, ocean-ruling, mountain-ruling, fortress-ruling. Little flashback to the fact that this was explained when fortresses were the way you protected your city. Dragon kings, Yaksha kings, Gandharva, Kumbhanda, Garuda, Ashura, Mahoraga kings, the eightfold pantheon of spiritual beings. Devas, gods came, and Brahma kings, from the 2 levels, the desire realm and the formless realm. That's who they were. Those are the Bodhisattva assemblies. Notice it says they were Bodhisattvas in the bodies of spirits, devas, dragons, came from their own homes to visit the Buddha. Now is the time, go to see the Buddha. All the praising's over, all the offering is over, all of the Buddha's explanation of what a bodhisattva is, it's over, all that stuff. This whole group, following Manjushri, because where he goes, he's not alone. He's surrounded by people who are just agog at being able to get close to Manjushri. They walked around the Buddha countless number of times, made offerings of many decorations. many adornments, many zhuangyanpin, many wonderful things that they gave to the Buddha. So here's Manjushri, the greatly wise bodhisattva, making offerings to the Buddha, just like we do. I was so happy yesterday. I came to lunch here at Gold Coast Dharma Realm, where we have a brand new, beautiful, golden-colored stupa in our central campus. And as I came up carrying my lunch box, here was a laywoman circling the stupa to the right countless times. I thought, it's working. That's what it's there for. That stupa has sharira, not just Master Hua's sharira, but also the Buddha's sharira inside. Or no, not yet. I guess not yet. That's why she said it that way. The Buddha's sharira will be installed when we dedicate it. I got it. So here she was walking around and reciting the mantra that you recite when you walk to the right. Yo rao ta, yo rao bao ta. And I thought, great. It's an interactive piece of architecture. Here's a building that you interact with because it's there only to honor the cultivation of a sage, somebody who left behind these relics in the ashes of their cremation. So how cool that it's being used correctly. So happy to see that. So here's Manjushri leading everybody around the Buddha to the right. The Buddha is a living relic. He's the embodiment of wisdom and making offerings. That's what you do when you have a Buddha to circle, praise, and make offerings to. They made offerings, said goodbye, and left the Jade Grove, went south towards the world of humans. Wang Yu Ren Jian. Okay. Now, the question arises, well, where were they if they're not in the realm of humans? And the answer to the question is, they were in the Jade Grove. The question arises, where was the Jade Grove? Well, there's a spiritual dimension to geography here that you have to, when you're touching the Avatamsaka, you have to kind of suspend our knowledge of north, south, east, west, up and down, planet below, heaven above. The Avatamsaka, is said, was lectured in Qi Chu Jiu Hui, 7 different places, 9 different times. This is the Jade Grove, the second time the Buddha has been in the Jade Grove to explain the Avatamsaka. Furthermore, we heard that you can't get too stuck on it being a single place, because as the bodhisattvas were arriving to make their praises of Manjushri, of the praises of the Buddha, it said, as it's happening in this world, it's happening simultaneously in worlds in number like dust motes in infinite Buddha lands. So there's this reciprocal kind of breathing. It's here and it's there at the same time. Here and there at the same time. So Manjushri is now, he has an appointment that he will keep because he is there to initiate a pilgrim. I'm going to stop sharing. Manjushri's job in the Avatamsaka Sutra at this point is to kick off the search for Buddhahood of Sudana. He has to pick him out of a crowd of young people down in a city that you can actually trace to southern India. Fuchang is actually a place. Is that the place down in Kerala, down in southern India? You know, you can go look for it. I tend to think it's in a spiritual realm, kind of where you see Mount Sumeru, which is not quite visible to the human eyes, but sometimes you have a feeling that Jambudvipa, the southern continent, is right where we are, but a parallel universe. How does it work? It's you have to kind of let your mind find that non-critical space in order to make sense. So, heading south, Manjushri is traveling, and there's all these stories about Manjushri that wherever he goes, blessings emerge from the earth. There are sutras that describe Manjushri as just, he stops the world. When Manjushri shows up, gold erupts from the ground, silver, rubies, and pearls, and emeralds, and diamonds, and vajra, and flowers rain down from the heavens. Manjushri, has been a Buddha multiple times before. He's now appearing as a bodhisattva in order to help Shakyamuni Buddha particularly explain the Avatamsaka, but Manjushri also appears in the Sharangam. It's very important. Appears in the lotus. He appears all over as the embodiment of prajna, wisdom. We see him with a sword in Chan halls around the world. The sword is the sword of Vajra, slices through the darkness of ignorance and affliction, helps us wake up. He rides on a lion. The lion is embodiment of courage, because when you're cultivating for wisdom, you come face to face with emptiness and the fear in the human heart that arises right alongside, spontaneously, with the breakup of the body. When you meditate, particularly in the Chan tradition, there are all kinds of states that can arise. And if you get hot, particularly in your dantian, heat rises. And you realize that this earth element, the solid parts of the body, are not actually that solid. That emptiness is the characteristic of every molecule. There's more emptiness inside each molecule than there is substance. And yet, we have this illusion of solidity, right? Knock, knock, knock. And knock, knock. Seems solid, but with the heat of meditation, you can see it all as buzzing energy. Water is H2O, 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen. You can break water apart, heat it, becomes steam, chill it, becomes ice, melt the ice back to water. That every part of the body, earth, air, fire, and water, is in a dynamic, active relationship with every other part. During meditation, that becomes clear. And it can be scary. So Manjushri is on his lion to say, do not fear, keep going, keep sitting. That's a state. In fact, living beings are still deluded, still suffering, even though you may know that at the heart of all conditioned things is emptiness. Wonderful existence still brings it all back into being with however much joy or suffering you have cultivated. So keep going, keep going. So that's what the lion is for. In the face of emptiness, you don't forget your vows to save living beings. Manjushri is a wonderful teacher of that wisdom. He is said to be because he's foremost in wisdom, he is the teacher of prajna, this transcendent wisdom that looks past the surface of all things, shows how they come apart and come back together, come apart. And he's got wisdom and principle to share. Samantabhadra, on the other hand, we're going to know a lot more about Samantabhadra in the weeks ahead. Samantabhadra, Pushen Pusa, he's the one who teaches you how to cultivate, what to do in order to accord with principle. Interestingly, Samantabhadra, they say, is the most Zhuangyan of all bodhisattvas. Zhuangyan, you don't want to say beautiful. You don't think of a bodhisattva as beautiful in those words because we have other concepts for beauty. But Samantabhadra is perfection. People see Samantabhadra and go, oh, I want to be like him. So here's Manjushri. And he's, let's see here, I'm going to share my screen. He's going south because he's got an appointment with this young man who's going to show up. Manjushri is going to praise him and say, you could be a Buddha. You could be a Zai Fa Qi, a vessel that can hold the Dharma. And Sudana, in his turn, looks at Manjushri and goes, save me a seat in your car. I want to ride your car. Let me ride that carriage. I want to ride your vehicle, the Mahayana, the great vehicle. So they have a poetry contest. They spoken word salutations. And then Manjushri says, you go south. So, okay, next. Ready? Another character is about to show up. 尔时尊者舍利弗，成佛神力，见文殊师利菩萨，于诸菩萨众会庄严，出士多林，望于南方，游行人间，作如是念：我今当与文殊师利俱往南方。At that moment, Venerable Shariputra, aided by the Buddha's spiritual power, saw that Bodhisattva Manjushri, together with the assembly of bodhisattvas attending him, had come out of the Jeta Grove and was traveling south to the world of people. And he thought, it's time to go south with Manjushri. Venerable Shariputra. His name, Shari is like an egret, a big tall bird, very elegant, long legs, long beak, seen on the shores of ponds worldwide, particularly in India. Putra is son of, so he's the son of Shari. It's said that his mother had beautiful egret eyes. So Shari is the mom, Shariputra is the son of the mom, so the son of Shari. And he was a teacher. He was a Brahmin with many disciples of his own, and he met a disciple named Asaji, who was a disciple of the Buddha. Shariputra asked him, said, tell me, who do you follow? This was in a time in India when India was this spiritually hugely active place. And there were many different competing teachers. And teachers would walk around with 200 disciples settling down for the night, 500 disciples settling down, depending on your popularity. And there was big competition. So now there's this new teacher who shows up, who was a former prince. And all these teachers have to negotiate their hold on their disciples because this new teacher's got quite a reputation. So Shariputra, being wise, asked a disciple of the new teacher, tell me what's special about your teacher. And Asaji, in a couple sentences, explained the Buddha's wisdom after he said, no, actually, 不好意思,不敢当. He said, no, I'm not qualified, but Shariputra wanted to hear anyway. So he explained how all things in the world that come together based on conditions will also disappear based on conditions. And Shariputra heard in this answer something that compelled him to go find out for himself. Sure enough, met the Buddha. Oh, he also, by the way, many of these teachers were former classmates of the same teacher as scholarly subjects. They were neighbors, they were relatives of each other. He was best friends with Mahamadhyayana, the foremost in psychic powers, who is, where do we meet Madhyayana? In Ulambana, the Ulambana story that arose from Madhyayana and his mother. Mu Lian Jiu, that was the story. Madhyayana woke up foremost in psychic powers, saw his mother was suffering in the hells and asked the Buddha to help save her. He was best friends with Shariputra. So he had already come over to the Buddha's team, Shariputra, with that help from his classmate and friend, decided to check it out himself, and did, and said the Buddha is the one, and brought all his students with him. So one of the stories that we love about Shariputra was every time you recite the Heart Sutra, Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness, emptiness does not differ from form, form itself is emptiness, emptiness itself is form. Shariputra, that's him, that's our disciple. He, among what are called the great disciples, the Ta-Ditsa, he is foremost in wisdom. And without going into it too deeply here, it's so interesting that Shariputra, we're going to find out next week, is the leader of 6,000 students. They're bhikshus, they're new cultivators, and he's kind of the Boy Scout troop leader following Manjushri. Now, in other traditions, other Buddhist traditions, Shariputra is the absolute peak. He's the pinnacle. He's the wisest of all. And here in the Avatamsaka, he's kind of the backbencher. He teaches the farm team. He's not the wisest. In fact, he is very interested in following the wisest, who is Manjushri. So a little bit of, would you say, rivalry appears in the sutra here. So Manjushri is decidedly the wisest of bodhisattvas. Shariputra is the wisest of disciples, and the disciples get in line behind the bodhisattvas. So just to say, if anybody wants to follow that, there's libraries full of treatises written about that rivalry within the body of Buddhism. So, Shariputra was great in meditation. He was a really good meditator. His samadhi was just awesome. And there are stories about Shariputra entering samadhi and nobody could bring him out of it. They would call his name, they would wait for him to wake up, and he would just be sitting like a rock. Okay. And in fact, there are stories, whether or not these are Mahayana stories, we don't know. There are stories that say Shariputra was using a yoga technique that was not proper. Proper meaning he was holding his six senses tight, which is effortful. You have to work at being able to shut everything down. My dear Professor Lancaster told a wonderful story in our first year of translation of Buddhist text class that I took for 3. I elected to come back on that. Not that I failed it and had to return. I chose to take that class 3 times. It was so good. He told this wonderful story. He said, okay, what's the difference between real Chan meditation and yogic trance meditation? And he said, okay, we take an EKG and we hook it up to an ordinary person. You take 2 boards and you go clap, 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 clap. And the EKG showing the brainwave response will go don't, and then don't, and then don't, and don't. Pretty soon you get used to it, you block it out. Like living next to a train and you never hear it after the first month. Train goes by every hour, but you don't hear it. Same, that's an ordinary person's response. He said, okay, take the EKG, hook up a yogic meditator who's in a trance. What does he do? Hook him up, get the electrodes up, and you go clap, 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 clap. And the line on the EKG is he's blocking it out. He's not hearing it because he's holding his senses like that. It's just a question of physical strength. It's a technique that you learn as a yogi. He said, all right, get the Chan meditator, hook him up, get the electrodes, and then you go clap, 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 clap. What does this chart look like? Spike, 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 spike. He is focused, in samadhi, fresh, responsive, in the minute, not predicting it and thereby shutting it out, not after a while getting used to it, not noticing, kind of you numb yourself to it. He's also not holding it, so his six senses are not dead. He's totally present, totally awake, able to respond, able to use wisdom and expedience from that place of samadhi to go teach. That's the difference. Okay, the Buddha criticized Shariputra and said, Shariputra, he said, you need to practice a better samadhi, because this is not the Mahayana. And the greatly wise Shariputra said, yes, sir, yes, World Honor One, will do. So there was a ghost in a mountain, a really powerful ghost king. I forgot his name was no kindness, ghost king in a mountain. And Shariputra had the habit of meditating wherever he stopped for the night. He was walking. So one day, he had stopped, one night he had stopped, and he was meditating by the side of the road. And there was a little pagoda, so he sat there. And the ghost king came down, this nasty ghost, and said, one of the Buddhist disciples, here's my chance. And he gave Shariputra a wallop across the side of the head. And so Shariputra blinked, opened his eyes, and here comes the Buddha. And the Buddha said, didn't I tell you not to meditate? Shariputra said, yeah, my ear hurts. What happened? The Buddha says, well, actually, this is the first time that meditation has helped you. He said, if you had not been using your yogi samadhi, you would have been smashed in a million pieces by that ghost king. He said, this time, he said that was actually helpful. So so people talking about the rivalry between Mahayana and the Theravada. Okay, more next week about Shariputra and the bhikshus. 6,000 bhikshus. We learn about them. We're going to learn about the meaning of bhikshus and arhats. There are 3, sometimes 5 different meanings. But what I wanted to share with you was a Manjushri story. Ho, ho, ho. This is a great Manjushri story. There's a number of Manjushri Bodhisattva stories that circulate. Wen Shu Da Shi Ying Ling Lu, it's called. The record of extraordinary, come back. Didn't mean to delete you, there you are. Extraordinary stories, responses to Manjushri Bodhisattva. And most of those, one more time, here we go. Most of those have to do with, well, now I've made it so big I can't find it. Where's my story? Number 8. Most of them have to do with Wu Taishan out in Shanxi province, 5 Peaks Mountain. And a lot of them have to do with Manjushri showing up to teach. He appears. Manjushri Bodhisattva is famous for appearing to save people or to reward them for their sincerity. Also, he is often there. He's mischievous because he will show up to let you know that you're not up to snuff. You're not up to par. You need to keep going. So, okay, well, I'm going to, as we go into the sutra, I'm going to keep people tuned in to these stories. I want this one right here. Here we go. In the Sui dynasty, there was a person whose name was Gao Jie. This is not a sutra, we don't have to put our palms together, but so a man whose name is Gao Jie. Sui dynasty, this is before the Tang, so this is like 6th century. He was from a place called Bingzhou, and when he was young, when he was just a kid learning to talk, the very beginning of his ability to talk, 只知道成年南无佛. The only thing he said as a child was Namo Buddha. 3 words, Namo Buddha. He didn't say anything else. He didn't say Mama, Daddy. He said Namo Buddha. So his the parents say, "Wow, that's weird. This child where did he learn to say this phrase, this one phrase? Right. This child is really too strange." That's what his parents frequently reflected on their son saying Namo Buddha, Namo Fo, Namo Fo. So time passed in a hurry, and before you knew it, he was 17 years old. He was a 17-year-old strapping young man. And he said, Mr. Gao, Master Gao, Gao Jie said, human life is really a lot of suffering. There's not much that delivers lasting happiness. It's just one trouble after another. If you want to get free, if you want to seek freedom, the only way to get free, to get liberated, is to cultivate the way. That's the only thing that human life offers that's really lasting happiness. 他心中想着放另一方面，他的父母认为自己的孩子这样。So that was what the kid said. The parents, hearing their child talk like this, were really worried because, let's see, 没有喝茶胃口似的. This child was bent on a life of cultivation. That's all he wanted to do. They were worried about him because if he's 17 years old, he wants to go cultivate, how is he going to keep himself alive? He said, Mom, Dad, I want to go to Wu Taishan and cultivate the way. I want to get liberated. They said, oh, you foolish child, you're too young, you're too small. We're going to worry about you if you go off to cultivate. No, he said, Mom, I'm 17 years old, I'm real tall already, I can take care of myself. So the parents saw that this young man had resolved to leave the dust, the world of dust behind. And he didn't want to do anything else. That was the only thing that he wanted to do. So they thought if we try to force him to stay home, nothing's going to come of that. So, and he's asking us so sincerely, we should just let him go. So, okay, he said, 一个人出门在外，要多这样. Please be careful, take care of yourself. You're going to be all by yourself on the path. So that was it. He packed up a simple backpack, said goodbye to his parents, and set off for Wu Taishan, Wu Tai Mountain, 5 Peaks Mountain. So he said, no matter what kind of difficulty, I really want to overcome it on my own, stand up for myself. 一达成我求法的. I'm going to fulfill my vow to seek the Dharma, he said. 他心里就想着. That was his resolve. 与中部才的经不少. So on the path, getting there to 5 Peaks Mountain, he encountered all kinds of difficulties, just untold travail to get there. 最后来到了五台山. The first time I read this, I said, 到了台北山. No, it's Bei Tai Shan. He first got there to the north peak of 5 Peaks. North, they're divided geographically. The back of North Peak into a valley should be a good place to find a cultivator. He saw an old Dutanga practicing monk. This is an ascetic monk out in the back. 住的是简陋的茅室, living in a ramshackle grass hut, eating the roots of vegetables and the leaves of trees, doing nothing but ascetic practice all day long, really bitter. And our young man, Mr. Gao, saw this. He was thrilled. He was delighted. He thought, I have finally reached a true, good, and wise advisor. 这一位大概是我所要拜的. Here is my teacher. I want to bow to him as my teacher. So Mr. Gao, the monk, let's see, I'm sorry. So what did young man, Mr. Gao, do? He went and knelt in front of the ascetic cultivator. Said, please accept me as your disciple. 弟子希望, I really hope that you will let me serve you beneath your Dharma seat and teach me how to learn about the Dharma. So the old monk says, can you eat bitterness? That's Buddhist language for, can you endure suffering? 可以, yes I can. Can you really eat bitterness? Can you endure suffering? 是的, yes I can. Okay, good. If you can, if you're not worried about eating really, really awful food, then you can get liberated. So, with that introduction, he started out in his own life of cultivation. So, he became a model ascetic Dutanga bitter practice cultivating disciple. He ate nothing but tree leaves and plant roots, and he dipped water out of a spring, 生活上简单的. And his life was the ultimate of simplicity. It was so simple, there couldn't be any more simplicity. 一连好多天都可以为苦. So, and he did. He was able to sustain this life of extreme deprivation out there on Five Peaks Mountain. 接着他的师父又告诉他, his teacher said to him, 你能够读诵法华经才可以. You want to get liberated, you got to recite the Dharma Flower Sutra from memory. 于是他非常, so at that point he was really hardworking. He got a copy of the Avatamsaka Sutra. 7 days later, he could recite it from memory like a running stream. He was able to recite it flawlessly and ask his teacher how to put an end to birth and death. Teach me the method, please. The teacher said to him, 如果你能收拾一切信念，放下妄缘，一坐7天, all you have to do, he said, is gather back all of your random thoughts, set aside all 10,000 conditions, sit in dhyana samadhi for 7 days. Then, naturally, you will get enlightened and put an end to birth and death. 于是这尊照, so he did it, just that. He did exactly what his teacher said. 如果如法器, so he crossed his legs, sat still for 7 days, and he felt his body was really light. He felt just totally free. And his mind was so happy. His mind was filled with Dharma bliss. And yet, even then, he was still in his human body. He hadn't left his body. So he knelt again in front of his teacher and said, 师父, thank you for teaching me your Maha Dharma, your great Dharma, so that I could get lots of benefits, which I have done. But, 愿师父慈悲, please be compassionate and accept me as a monk. Let me leave home with you. He said he wanted to have his head shaved. 要求苦头为他剃度. 对, so his teacher said, I'm really old. In Chang'an now, they've opened up a ordination ceremony for the 3 platforms, the 3 mandalas of precepts. And there is a Chan master in there named Wo Lun. So go see him, and he will accept you, let you leave home under him. So, 但是得到目前为止他还不知道. So at this point, he said,师父, I still don't know your name, even though I've been cultivating beside you. Could you please tell me, what is your name? And he says, my name is Hai Yun, ocean cloud. Remember, 你记住好了, remember my name. So Mr. Gao, the young man, so he cried, tears came to his eyes as he said goodbye to his teacher. and left. He went to Chang'an, asked around for Wolun, Dharma Master Wolun, and Chan Master Wolun saw him and said, oh, he said, where'd you come from? I came from Wu Tai Shan. Why have you come here? Because I was instructed by a monk who told me that I should ask you to please shave my head. So, what was the name of that monk who said that? My Shifu's name is Ha Yun. So Master Wolun says, what? What did you say? Tell me again. Ha Yun, he said. And he says, Ha Yun, that's the name of one of young man Sudana's 53 teachers in the Avatamsaka Sutra. He's number 3. He's the third teacher that Sudana goes to bow to. If you don't have conditions that come together after 10,000 lifetimes, you will never ever get to see a monk like that. 可是你却, but you gave up your opportunity to meet with a true sage and came down looking for me? You made a huge mistake. You never should have left. So Gao Jie suddenly woke up on the spot and thought back to the quality of the ascetic practice under the Dutanga monk up there on Wu Tai Shan, how bitter the practice was, and yet his mind was pure, without desire. And Yanxing Tu Yi, his words and his practices were so special, 本来就是一位不出世的奇人, that he was indeed a rare, unusual cultivator, someone that a good wise advisor who you could never meet in 1,000 generations. And he said, oh my God, I should have smashed my body into bits in being sincere to seek after a teacher like that. 于是黄望五台山跪拜. So he knelt facing Five Peaks Mountain, 希望能够再度见, hoping that he would meet the teacher ocean cloud once more. 就在他赶回头头在过地方, that he would have a chance to meet and study with him again. So, 那么海云山知识就是一片清凉山地，就是一片荒凉的山地罢了. Oh, okay, here what happened. So, he went running back to Five Peaks Mountain, hoping to see ocean cloud, Kalyana Mitra. And he went back to the place where he had encountered his former teacher, and where do you suppose he had gone? There was nothing but a bare stretch of mountainside. No teacher anymore. So that's a Manjushri Bodhisattva story, and all of these, this collection of stories are all like that. There's 30-some here. I'll be sharing those as we go, and they're all pretty much like that. There's this kind of, a lot of them have to do with bitter realization that they missed the opportunity. And I'll include the story from the first 3 Steps, 1 Bow in America, Tim Testu, Bhikshu Hengju, and Bhikshu Hengyo, who actually met Manjushri Bodhisattva in a convenience store on a mountain road up in Washington State, north of Seattle. I'll tell you that story later on. Okay, time for me to invite Bhikshu Jinchuan, who is here. Bhikshu, hi, Jinchuan Shi, anything to share?
Hello.
Hi,
Yeah, Jingwei is going to share right now.
cool.
He's here with me.
Yeah, actually, we're 2 of us are here. And
That's nice.
He's Jinwei,
Oh,
and we have few announcements what we want to make. And Dharma, sir, you opening, right, the website? Yeah, we are here. So the first is an information and about the change of Reverend Sher's your series of lecture about Master Xu Yun biography. So right now, for those who are listening from California, is 6:30 p.m. every Friday. It's 1 hour lecture, 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Same day, Friday, by different time, 6:30 p.m. And I think, Dharma sir, what is the time for Australia? If you can tell to everyone.
Yeah, it's 12:30 on Saturday afternoon. Right,
12:30. Okay,
right next to the dining room in our new library.
nice.
And if you're in China, it's 10:30 a.m. If you're in Taiwan, it's 10:30 a.m. on Saturday morning.
Wonderful. Yeah. So this is upcoming and going on all the time. The next one we can see on the website is online retreat when Ji Chuan and myself are helping out. The title is For Fearless Hearts, and we will use the kind of pod technology when it is a combination of offline online retreat, and people, those who are interested to join and learn more about the four boundless hearts: loving kindness, metta or maitri, compassion, what is karuna, and appreciative joy or rejoicing is mudita, and pekha, what is equanimity. And we already more than 100 people sign up for different countries, included those kind of places like Palestine. We have two
Seriously?
people, who joined from Palestine, from Goa Island,
Goa.
Europeans and Americans, Canadians, and
Even a few
so
Australians.
even from Australia. So still we're waiting for some. So please don't lose opportunity if you wish to learn something together with community, and you can explore also the platform, what is pretty skillfully done.
Okay.
So this is gonna start December 9, which is not this Saturday, next Saturday for a week. We're starting the 7 days of this online retreat.
Okay, it's an online and offline retreat.
Yes, and the Great Compassion Mantra, maybe we can skip that because it will be in the end of this month, December. So this is how we will celebrate New Year Eve with the Great Compassion Transference, but we have few weeks to go still. And still our classes are going, like Professor Marty Verhoeven, Avatamsaka Sutra every Friday, 7:30, starting with meditation and the lecture.
Let me ask, I'm gonna interrupt. Is Marty's birthday the 2nd or the 10th of December?
Oh,
I believe it was today.
Yeah.
it was today.
The second, because yesterday we sang happy birthday to him, and
Okay, there you go.
and we said, and I asked him exactly what day it was. I think he said second, just about 12 hours or something.
Okay. Yep.
But we don't mention about the age, right? It's, with every year is younger and more.
Younger.
So Marty, and we see Cultivating Virtue, Stephen Tainer. So those classes are the part of our Dharma Realm Buddhist University extension. And I guess, did Marty announce when he planned to take a break?
This next class will be the last class.
So next Friday, if you wish to come and see Professor Marty Verhoeven in person, you can do that, and it will be held in our Buddha Hall, Berkeley Buddhist Monastery, or you can watch online class, which will be also streamed through YouTube. And we're not sure when will be the last Stephen Taylor class, but it could be this or maybe next week, and we'll have a break, and all the classes will start again, I guess, in the end of January, beginning of February. This is our kind of winter break every year, what we have. Okay. And of course, we have today's lecture, Dharma Master, Reverend Heng Sher, Avatamsaka Sutra, and the next is the first Tuesday with Abhagiri monks. We know already who is confirmed, who is coming, Ajahn Karuna Dhamma with another monk, and Anagarika, there comes for the last first Tuesday, which is 5 p.m. is tea and Dharma, and 7:30 is a talk and meditation and even transmission of 5 precepts. It will be the last first Tuesday before 3 months winter retreat. They resume again starting from April 2024. So definitely it's good to come if you wish to see Abhayagiri monks here in person in Berkeley Monastery.
Okay.
And
Yes.
the last Dharma Master this year, tomorrow's lecture is a different channel, but same text, Avatamsaka Sutra, and the different chapter, 10 transference chapter. You can find the links. You can join through Zoom, or you can join YouTube channel. Is City of 10,000 Buddhas channel. 7:30 p.m. California time.
Alrighty. Okay, thank you for the news. Appreciate that. Sam, is there anything to announce from GCDR? Okay, let's take a look. gcdr.org.au. Here we are. Scrolling down. Okay, let's see here. There it is right there. So, the 16th of December to the 22nd, an Amitabha retreat. Nianfo. Let's see here. Dharma talks at night, an hour lecture every night. So, that's our next event. You can follow online, you can join online. If you can find if you have WeChat, everybody in China uses WeChat for everything. When you enter a parking lot and you want to pay, you go to the gate to leave the parking lot, and there's a QR code. You take your phone and go, doop, and it detracts it from your phone. You go out, just like that. The whole country does it that way. That's so. In America, if somebody would propose that, and half of the legislators would go, it's just a bunch of socialism, we don't want to do it. Never happened. So, in China, slick. It works really well. Okay, so dedication of merit coming up. Stories next week about the China trip. Lots of good things to share. More on that. Should we make a wish and send out our best thoughts to the world that needs help? Just like Mr. Gao in our story, the world hasn't changed much. Here we go. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find in giving unity. May our hearts away to bring compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and may this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world enters into chaos. May all become compassion. invite you to join me in bowing to the Buddha. Here we go. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Okay, that's going to do it for us for today. See you all next week. Aum Tofu, everybody. Bye-bye.